Alright, so in this video we're going to cover a little bit more on Msfpayload. We're going to talk about a couple different concepts, some ideas, kind of do a little bit more explaining. In this video, basically, as you can see the command here, we're going to actually change the port number from the default port, which is 4444, let's go back down here, to 8888. So, and obviously then we'll go into MSF console, and eventually we will set up our multi-handler, our listener, so that it actually will listen on port 8888. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, if you want, you can just copy the command I've done here. It's Msfpayload. Select your payload, Windows/interpreter/reverse_TCP. And obviously we're setting the L host. We're setting the L port. The capital X means that we're going to make it an executable. And we're going to go ahead and name it testbackdoor2.exe. So let's go ahead and hit enter. While that generates, I'm going to go to my MSF console, and I basically need to exploit our machine because we're going to go ahead and upload it just like we did in the last video. Okay, let me go back to our other terminal, and it looks like it generated our L host, our payload with the L host, and the L port, which is on 8888. So let's do an ls, and we can see that test backdoor 2 is there. So it's also in our root folder. We need to remember that. And let's go ahead and exploit this, and then we're going to upload it. Alright, now we can do an upload, specify the file location of our payload, which is in our root folder, so /root/testbackdoor2.exe. And we're going to put it in C:2/ or whack, enter. There we go, uploaded it super quick. Now I'm going to go ahead and exit this. And I'm going to completely exit out of Metasploit. So here's the idea. We've completely exited out of the MSF console because I don't want it to remember any of the settings that I used. We just did an exploit, we just set a payload. So now I'm going to actually go back in there completely, back into the MSF console. But again, the reason why I exited it was this kind of simulates as if, let's say we've turned our computer off, we've got a payload that's sitting out there, and a user may click on it, whether it's clicking on the payload itself, or we wrapped it with a game or piece of software, whatever it is. So obviously we don't have our computer on 24 hours, or at least we're not sitting in front of it 24 hours a day. So this would just simulate us going into MSF console. We're not going to exploit the machine. This payload it's already on another system. And so we're going to basically all we're going to do is just set up our multi-handler or our listener, and we're going to try to just listen, but remember it's on port 8888. So use exploit, it's under multi and handler. If we do a show options, there probably won't be any options, just like it was before. So what if we just hit run right now? What would happen? Well, let's hit run. We can hit run, we can hit exploit. I believe both of them will work for this one. Now you can see it started the reverse handler on 4444. Well, obviously that's not going to work. The payload is on 8888. So Control C will stop our handler, and I can let's try and set the port by doing a set L port 8888. What does it do? Even though that there's no options, we're still able to set this L port. So now let's hit run and see what happens. And it sets it on 8888. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and control C this. Let's look at the options. It has automatically selected Windows Meterpreter reverse underscore TCP. It has the L host and automatically put the L port in there. So it knows how to do that somehow. I'm not sure. It's grabbing our L host. Again, I don't know if it's remembering this, but one thing that you can do to specify the port, if you went to set the port and it didn't work, then obviously we need, if you got different results than I did, then you need to know how to do this. So basically all you would need to do is you would just set the payload. And this is basically specifying the type of payload that's being launched. Now, before I didn't set the payload. I did in other Metasploit sessions, but we exited. We completely closed down Metasploit and we restarted it. And it still automatically gave me this payload. But I'm just saying it might not do it for you guys. So to do this, you would just set this payload and set it for this port. So again, you would set payload, Windows, Meterpreter, reverse TCP, show options, and then you would just do accordingly. You would just set your L host to the correct L host. You would set your L port to your correct L port. Once you do your show options, you should have everything all set in there. Then you should be good to go. Mine automatically did it for me, so if yours didn't, you would just want to go ahead and manually type all of that in. So let's go ahead and hit run. We can see that it's running on port 8888. Let's go to our victim machine. There's our test backdoor 2. Double click on that. Jump over to Kali. We can see that it's establishing the Meterpreter session. And there's our Meterpreter session. So now we can go ahead and do a PS. Now we can see that it says test backdoor 2.exe. There's a couple different things that we're going to look at here to kind of close this video out. Again, we're going to need to migrate simply because if the user pulls up his task manager, he's going to say that doesn't look very appealing, and they're going to probably close it, or the possibility is there. So first of all, we need to get UID. We're just researchers. So if we had no privileges, if we didn't have admin privileges, it's not going to let us migrate. So we need to, again, get system like we did in the last video. Hopefully this grabs the system, which it did. I can do another get UID. We are now NT authority system. So get PID, what is the process ID? We're 1456, which is our back door. So we need to hurry up and get away from that in case it gets closed. So we want to look for, I like to do the SVC host, but choose the right one. So it looks like I can choose this one, which is NT authority. This one's NT authority. Sometimes you'll see some that are not NT authority. They might be like for network or something else, but obviously we want to keep it NT authority. So I'm going to migrate to 908. That's obviously on my system. Your system will probably be different. Alright, now let's do a PS, and our process should be ended. Alright, so our payload, our backdoor, our Trojan, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't run, it's not running anymore. Over here, there's absolutely nothing that's going on. There's no program that launches. It's just gone. So that's nice. Now one of the only other things that the user can do is let's pull up our command prompt and let's do a netstat, and we're going to do a -n. Netstat space -n, and we can see this -n is for our network connections, and we can see here 192.168.1.106, that's the XP machine on 1042, and we can see that it's going to 192.168.1.101, which is the attacker machine on port 8888 and it's established. So right there, that's a way that the user can identify what the current connections are on the network. So that is the only other way that a user would probably go about finding out if there was something there. Obviously, if they're just a regular computer user, if they're not very educated in kind of, the do's and don'ts of computers, then they probably wouldn't know how to run a netstat. But anyhow, it's a possibility. I'm just making you aware it's there. So anyhow, the last thing I guess that I'll show you for this video is we can go ahead and exit this. And let's go back to other terminal here. What we can go ahead and do is we can generate, I'm going to use the up arrow, and we can generate, let's say, a C program. So I can do a capital C, and I'll just put a .c at the end for like a C program. Let's go ahead and generate that, and I'll kind of show you what it looks like. And obviously, if you knew C, this is going to show you some different information. It's not your standard C programming that you would expect to see. This is going to show you a bunch of stack information, and you could obviously edit that if you wanted to. If we generated it into a Python script, it would look extremely similar. Looks like it's done there. We'll do an ls, and there's our C program. And now we can do a nano test backdoor 2.c, and nano is going to open this in memory. So you got to give it a second, and it's pretty cool. It shows in stage 1, so it's saying that's 290 bytes. So it's kind of a little bit extra information here, and then we can see the stage 2, and we can see that's quite a few more bytes than the original one. So again, I believe when we originally were talking about Mterpreter, it sends it in 2 different stages, and the second stage is when it uploads in memory a Mterpreter server, so to speak, and so that that allows us to interact with Mterpreter, with the Mterpreter server on the XP machine, so we can execute all these different commands and all this stuff. So this is quite large, but anyways, that's how you would go ahead and look at that information if you wanted to output it to a C or a .py, which is a Python. Anyways, I'm rambling on, so just hit Control X, and that will exit that out. And that's just another way of opening it up and actually seeing it. Now, if we were to open up the testbackdoor.exe, it's an exe. There's no way that we're going to read this, so that doesn't do us any good. But the cool thing is that we can do it into a C program, into Python, or a language that you might be more familiar with, and then you can look at it, understand it a little bit better. So anyhow, guys, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you in this video. I think in the next video we'll still be going over some Msfpayload stuff, but we're just taking these baby steps, and so we'll be doing some pretty cool stuff here soon. So enjoy.